Hello everyone, this is Jeff Murren. Welcome back. Continuing our discussion of the Iliad by Homer, specifically the Robert Fagel's translation of the book, and this particular video is going to focus on book 13. Now, a little bit of review of how we got to book 13. If you will remember, the last scene was when Hector had stormed with the Trojans through the ramparts to get to the Greeks, the Greek army, the Greek ships, and where they have been staged. And that very famous line that he has there at the end that says, "The wall, storm the wall," okay? So this is where we are as the Trojans are entering. And if you recall, this is something that Zeus has been working towards. He has been the one who has supported the Trojans and has worked in their favor. If you recall, when Iris came to Hector and told Hector, once Agamemnon is wounded on battle, that is your signal to go. And go he does. One thing I do want to bring about, I also wanted to mention too, that this is also going along with what Achilles had requested. If you remember that, he requested at the very beginning, I want the Greeks to suffer because of the spat that he had going on with Agamemnon over Briseis and Chryseis and all that from the very beginning. So we're still here in book 13, still dealing with the aftermath of the, how do you want to say it, the conflict between Agamemnon and Achilles. So nothing seems absolutely clear for the Greeks. This is a Greek story, but the Trojans seem to have the momentum because the Trojans have Zeus behind them. Now, if you remember, one other thing I want to bring up, Hector's buddy, Polydamas, if you remember him, having the conversation with him about, hey man, look, if we're going to go through these ramparts and we're going to do this, we need not use the chariots because it's going to be too difficult to maneuver. We need to go on foot, and we need to be very aware of how things are working out because we're going to be so far away from the city of Troy once we break through. All right, and I wanted to bring that up because we will see Polydamas again trying to talk some sense into Hector. But as Hector, he's got his sign. Hector knows that Zeus is behind him, and since he has that kind of confidence, it's full steam ahead for Hector. All right, so everything is going the way that Zeus wants it to go. This is all according to his plan. And so he looks down and sees that this is taking place. He is fully and completely satisfied with what's happening. And so he decides, all right, well, I guess it's time that I can just move on and attend to other things. And when he does that, he leaves the door open, I guess, in a sense, for some other influences to come and sort of play around with these men and the war that's going on. And this is exactly what happens. Poseidon comes in and he decides that he wants to benefit the Greeks and he wants to help spur them on to change turn the tide of the battle, as it were. And I think this is interesting because when this happens, Zeus has no idea that this is going on. He is completely out of the picture. So these Greek gods are different than, let's say, gods that some people are more familiar with, the Judeo-Christian God who is omnipotent, all-powerful. He's omniscient, he's everywhere at once, and he's omnipotent, all-powerful, he's omniscient, meaning all-knowing, and he's omnipresent, meaning he's everywhere at once. That's not the situation when it comes to Zeus. Zeus is not omnipresent. He decides to leave. He goes away. And as he is gone, Poseidon's going to come right on in. All right? He's not omniscient. He's not all-knowing because this is all happening in his absence and he's unawares. all right? And we get the sense in the Garden of Eden that the Judeo-Christian God there may not have been omniscient, because he did come and see Adam and Eve clothed and say, hey, what happened here? As if he didn't know. Right? Anyway, that's another conversation for another time. But it's that kind of thing that's happening here. All right, so let's jump into the text and let's take a look. So here we go. As I mentioned, we got Zeus taking a leave of absence, and Poseidon coming in and talking to the Greeks and getting the Greeks getting a fire under. But once Zeus had driven Hector and Hector's Trojans hard against the ships, he left both armies there, milling among the hulls to bear the brunt and wrenching work of war, no end in sight. While Zeus himself, his shining eyes turned north, gazed a world away to the land of Thracian horsemen, the Mysian fighters hand to hand, and the lordly Hippimilgi, who drink the milk of mares, and the Abii, most decent men alive. But not a moment more would he turn his shining eyes to Troy. Zeus never dreamed in his heart a single deathless god would go to war for Troy or Achaea's forces now. All right, so this never crossed his mind. So the idea that he could foresee the future, he knows all and what will be all, now and forever, is not the way the Greek gods work. This happens unbeknownst to him. All right, so the mighty god of earthquakes was not blind. This is Poseidon here. He kept his watch, enthralled by the rush of battle. Aloft, the summit of timbered Samos, facing Thrace. From there, the entire Ida Ridge swung clear in view, the city of Priam clear, and the warships of Achaea climbing out of the breakers, where there Poseidon sat and pitied the Argives, beaten down by Trojan troops, and his churning outrage rose against the father there being Zeus. Let's go to the next page, 343, about line 55-ish. It says, but the ocean king, Poseidon, who grips and shakes the earth, rising up from the offshore swell, urged the Argives, taking the build and tireless voice of Calchas. All right, so it's not as though Poseidon is saying, I am Poseidon, do this, all right? But he is taking on the persona of Calchas to instill the fighting fire within the Greeks. First, the god commanded the great and little Ajax, hungry for war as both men were already. Ajax, both of you, fight to save the Achaean armies. Call up your courage, no cringing panic now. At other points on the line, I have no fear of the Trojans' hands, invincible as they seem. Troops who had stormed our massive wall in force. Our men-at-arms will hold them at bay. But here, I fear the worst. I dread a breakthrough. Here, this firebrand, rabid Hector leads the charge, claiming to be the son of high and mighty Zeus. But the two of you, if only a god could make you stand fast yourselves, tense with all your power, command the rest of your men to stand fast too. Then you could hurl him back from the deep sea ships, hard as he hurls against you, even if Zeus himself impels the madman on. Of course, there's a little bit of irony there. He's saying, if only a god could get you to do this. Well, Poseidon is a god, okay? Of course, he doesn't appear that way, but he's saying, if only a god could do this. Well, a god is doing this, all right? Even further on page 344, down at the bottom about line 112, Poseidon pressed them on with winging charges. Shame, you Argives, raw recruits, and I trusted in you, certain that if you fight, you'll save our ships. But if you hang back from the grueling battle now, your day has dawned to be crushed by the Trojans. What disgrace! A marvel right before my eyes. A terrible thing, and I never dreamed the war would come to this. The Trojans advancing all the way to our ships? Men who up till now had panicked like deer, food in the woods for jackals, leopards, wolves, helpless, racing for dear life, all fight gone. For months on end, the Trojans would have no heart to stand and face the Argives' rage and bloody hands, not for a moment, but now, quite exposed, far from Troy. Remember that? Far from Troy. That was something that Polydamas said earlier, far from Troy. They battle around our hollow ships. Hollow meaning we haven't actually accomplished anything. There are no spoils of war. Those hulls aren't loaded with anything. So come on, guys. All right. Thanks to our leader's weakness, our army is slacking off. Our men fight with him. They'd rather drop and die by our fast trimmed ships than rise to their defense. Okay. Sort of a slight there on Achilles letting all of this kind of thing happen. There are some who are just sort of milling around, letting part of the Greek army fight, but not the entirety of the Greek army. All right. So we see also that Hector in this still retains the confidence that he's always had since he's heard from Iris and gotten the go-ahead from Zeus. You'll see on page 346, line 179-ish. It says, Trojans, Lycians, Dardan skirmishers hand to hand, stand by me here. They cannot hold me off any longer, these Achaeans, not even massed like a wall against me here. They'll crumble under my spear. Well, I know, if the best of immortals really drives me on, Hera's Lord whose thunder drums the sky. All right, so I have the best of the gods. Let's do this. All right, and it's interesting too to mention here at the bottom of 347 where it says about, let's say, line 226-ish, Hector rushing in and Ajax lunged with a spear, yet the burnished weapon could not pierce his skin. Hector's whole body was cased in tremulous bronze, but Ajax did stab home at the shield's jutting bulge, beating Hector back with enormous driving force, and he gave ground back away from both corpses. Okay, so it's interesting that, is this a situation where Zeus has somehow enveloped Hector in some sort of thing? Or is this just the poet's way of describing the power of his armor? Like his armor is just that great that nothing can penetrate it. And I bring that up because you will see as we continue reading, especially in the Odyssey, that Athena will surround Odysseus in a mist or make it so that he is not recognizable or whatever. So, it kind of brings to mind that. But I want you to see something here. What we come up with next is the killing of Amphimachus. Amphimachus, his name, you'll see it about the third line down on page 348. All right, and Amphimachus dies, and he has a very important grandfather, and that's Poseidon. All right, so Poseidon pushes the Greeks into this battle and gets them spurred on, and as a result, his own grandson is killed. Okay, so it's like this becomes now even more personal for Poseidon. And this is a very important point to make as we continue on and we read in the Odyssey, because it is Poseidon who causes all the trouble for Odysseus, and it's because of what Odysseus did to Poseidon's son. All right, so Poseidon in these two stories has some pretty crap luck when it comes to his own offspring. First his grandson here, and then his son in the next book. All right, so Poseidon is riled up, and for good reason, it would seem. All right, and I want you to see that the idea of the lion seizing a goat, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down from the top. We've got the lion seizing goat, stalking like lions, pouncing like lions. This idea of lions always, as far as the imagery goes in this particular book, is interesting. But let's look about line 245. And the heart of Poseidon quaked with anger. His own grandson brought down in the bloody charge. He surged along the Achaean ships and shelters, spurring Argives, piling griefs on Trojans. The famous spearman Idomeneus crossed his path. He'd come from a friend who had just emerged from battle, gashed in the back of the kneecap, gouged by whetted bronze. That soldier the comrades carried off. But Idomeneus, giving the healer's orders, made for his own tent, though he still yearned for action face to face, and the god of earthquakes only fueled his fire. Idomeneus, captain of Cretans under arms, where have the threats all gone that sons of Achaeans leveled at these Trojans? All right, and so what happens as a result of this? Of Poseidon going and saying to him and getting him all riled up is Idomeneus goes on a rampage, and he just takes out as many people as he can take out. Okay, the word there being Aristeia. That is when one of the people, we saw Diomedes doing this kind of thing where he just goes and kills a ton of people, and Teucer went and did the same thing, and Agamemnon did, where they're just taking on and taking out people left and right. The word is Aristeia. And so here we have Idomeneus doing that exact same thing. All right. We see on page 357 an appearance by a very particular and very famous specific Trojan named Aeneas. All right, and we will read the Aeneid, which is a book telling the story of Aeneas, telling this particular Trojan story. It is not written by Homer, it is written by Virgil. But a lot of people make the joke that what Virgil writes is essentially Homeric fan fiction. He's writing the Roman, and I'll give you more information on this as we look at it, but it's like he's writing the Roman history into and trying to interweave it into the Greek history with the Iliad and the Odyssey. And it's almost as if he's saying, okay, because what happens is Aeneas eventually goes off to establish Rome. All right, and so what happens, the reason for this is the Greek culture was the amazing culture. But when we had the rise of the Romans are like, we don't have this history, this amazing tales. And so what we're going to do is we're going to co-opt it. We're going to be like a barnacle in the back of a whale. And we're going to take this particular story and fashion it to suit us. And essentially, we're going to get the last laugh. All right, and we'll look at that at another time. All right, but here we will see this on 357. It says, "Over here, my friends, I'm all alone. Defend me. I fear Aeneas terribly. Coming on, top speed, bearing down on me now, and filled with power, enormous power to take me down in battle. He's just the first flush of youth, what's more, the greatest power of all. If we were the same age, I tell you, just the same fury fills us both. At a single stroke, he'd bear off glory now, or I'd bear it off myself." All right, and this is Idomeneus speaking here about Aeneas. "So the Cretan yelled, and all his comrades came in pack with one will, massing around him, bracing shields to shoulders. But across the line, Aeneas called his comrades, glancing first at Deiphobus, Paris, brave Agenor, and all the Trojan captains who backed Aeneas here, and fighters followed close behind like flocks that followed the lead ram, leaving the pasture land to drink its springs, and the shepherd's heart exults. So now the heart of Aeneas leapt inside his chest when he saw the flocks of fighters crowding in his wake. Got that epic simile there that Aeneas is looking around and realizing, oh, everyone's got my back. All right, okay. And we'll see that, he is considered important by the Trojans, and he will be considered important as he gets his own book later on. All right. So what we see is Menelaus giving a speech here, because let's not forget that this is all about Menelaus. This is all about what we're doing for him, or what the Greeks are doing for him. Because they are there to get his wife back, who has been taken from him. All right, so we'll see that in this speech too, it's not just that Helen was taken. Maybe there was more to the picture. All right, I'm on page 361, line 714, I would say. So home you'll run from your racing ships, by God, all as corpses. See, you death-defying Trojans, never sated with shattering war cries are you, nor do you lack the other brands of outrage, all that shame you heaped on me, you rabid dogs. No fear in your hearts for the quaking rage of Zeus, the thundering god of hosts, and welcome stranger, right? Stranger, the concept of xenia, like you've taken from me, you've stolen from me, so there's no way that you are really in good graces with the gods, okay? You have to suffer for this thing that you have done. One day he'll raise your lofty city for you, you Trojans who stole away my wedded wife, and hordes of riches too. For no reason, none. My queen of the realm who hosted you with kindness, okay, we exercised xenia, did you? And now you rampage on among our deep sea ships, wild to torch our hulls and kill our heroes. Well, you'll be stopped somewhere, mad as you are for combat. Zeus, Father Zeus, they say you excel all others, all men and gods in wisdom clear and calm, but all this brutal carnage comes from you. Look how you favor them, these reckless Trojans, their fury always in uproar. No one can ever slake their thirst for blood, for the great leveler, war. That's a very famous line. War is the great leveler, and it comes from here. Okay, one can achieve his full of all good things, even of sleep, even of making love. Rapturous song and the beat and sway of dancing. A man will yearn for his fill of all these joys before his fill of war. But not these Trojans. No one can glut their lust for battle. All right? And the idea here that, Menelaus is saying is like, look, you Trojans are having all this success. And you're having all this success not because you're better than we are. Not because we are an inferior warrior culture than you, but it's that Zeus is seeing to it that you are winning. All right? If all other things were equal, you all wouldn't stand a chance. We Greeks would take you down. Okay, that's kind of the gist of what's going on here. All right? So we see Polydamas again at the bottom of page 364, trying to talk some reason into Hector, who is just so confident and enraged and wanting to keep this momentum going on behalf of the Trojans, all right? This is the very last break at the bottom of the page. Deadly going. Then and there the Trojans might have been rolled back far away from the ships and tents to windstorm Troy if Polydamas had not rushed to headstrong Hector. Impossible, man. Won't you listen to reason? Just because some god exalts you in battle, you think you can beat the rest at tactics too? How can you hope to garner all the gifts at once? One man is a splendid fighter, a god has made him so, one's a dancer, another is skilled at lyre and song, and deep in the next man's chest, far-seeing Zeus plants the gift of judgment, good and clear sense, all right? So, Hector, no one is good at everything, all right? And that last one, some are good at judgment. Me, Polydamas, listen to me, all right? You haven't listened to me yet, all right? But you can't be all things. And I find this interesting because the way we come to understand Odysseus is, yeah, he's great at battle, and he's also a great tactician. He's very clever. And so is Polydamas right here? When we find out and the picture of Odysseus becomes clearer over time? I don't know. But anyway, let's keep going with what he has to say. And many reap the benefits of that treasure. Troops of men he saves as he himself knows best. The person who uses good judgment saves the troops. All right. So now I will tell you what seems best to me. Look, the battle burns like a swirling crown around your head. About our valiant Trojans, once they scaled the wall, some fall back from the front, idling in armor. Others soldier on, squads against mass formations, scattering helter-skelter around the holes. Draw back now. Call the best of our captains here, this safe ground. Then when we can all fall in and plan our tactics well, whether we fling ourselves against the ships if Zeus would care to hand us victory now, or beat retreat from the beach and cut our losses. I fear they'll pay us back for yesterday's triumph, because that's how it's been going, right? It's like there's one triumph and then there's the other one, and the momentum of the battle has changed hands as we go on here. So he's been keeping tabs on that. He waits by the ships, a man never sated with battle. I doubt he'll keep from the fighting any longer, not with all this warlust. Achilles, he's been quiet. He's over there, but I don't know that he will stay quiet for long, because he's Achilles after all, okay? So Polydamas is no dummy. And it's interesting that after Polydamas does that to Hector, Hector then finds Paris and is like, oh, well, Polydamas is like, man, use your brain. And then Hector's like, Paris, what are you doing? Sort of shifting the focus away from himself, it seems, all right? You'll see this on page 366, about line 885-ish, maybe. At the end where it says, Royal Paris, just always some way to describe Paris, because he's just such a, as I've said before, just kind of like the old school, Dennis Rodman all show kind of a thing. Anyway, so Royal Paris, fair-haired Helen's consort, was rousing comrades, driving them back to battle. Once he gained his side, Hector raked his brother with insults, and he seems to do that a lot. Stinging taunts. Paris, appalling Paris, our prince of beauty, bad for women, you lure them all to ruin. All right. So, he's just like saying that kind of you have the opposite of the Midas touch, dude. All right. Skipping a few lines, says, now all towering Troy is ruined top to bottom. Now one thing's certain, your own headlong death. All right. And Paris, magnificent as a god, replied, Hector, bent on faulting a man without a fault? At other times I might have shrunk from the fighting, true, but not today. Mother bore me, even me, not to be a coward, through and through. Think, since you fired our comrades' fury against the ships, from that hour we've held our ground right here, taking the Argives on, and non-stop, no rest. Our comrades are dead, Hector, those you inquire about with such concern. All right, only Deiphobus and the rugged warlord Helenus have made it back alive, wounded with sturdy spears, both in the hand too. But Zeus beat off their deaths. Now, lead the way, wherever your fighting spirit bids you. All of us right behind you, hearts intent on battle. Nor do I think you'll find us short on courage. Long as our strength will last, past his strength, no man can go, though he's set on mortal combat. And what we've seen a lot up until now is Hector will chastise Paris, and Paris is like, you got a point. You're right. Okay, I need to do better. But that's not the way it's going now. Paris is like, hey, I'm here. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. Okay? And at the end, we see Ajax, two things. Ajax will challenge Hector, and we get yet another bird sign. But watch from what direction this bird sign comes compared to the one from last, all right? About line 933, I guess, he plowed forward, testing enemy lines at all points to see if they'd crack before him, charging under his shield. But he could not empower the Argives stiff-resolved. And Ajax, hulking forward with big strides, the first to challenge Hector, madman, come closer, trying to frighten Argives? Why waste your breath? No, it's not that we lack the skill in battle. It's just the brutal lash of Zeus that beats us down. That idea again. You're not better than we are. It's Zeus that is making it to where you are beating us. If all things were normal, we would make quick work of this. We'd get Helen, we get back home. All right. Your hopes soar, I suppose, to gut and crush our ships. Well, we have strong arms too, arms to defend those ships. And long before that, your city packed with people will fall beneath our hands, plundered to rubble. And you, I say, the day draws near when off you run and pray to Father Zeus and the other deathless gods to make your full-maned horses swifter than hawks, whipping dust from the plain to sweep you back to Troy. Clear on the right. A bird winged past to seal those words, a soaring eagle swooping, spirits high with the sign. All right, so we know how the other one was interpreted when it came from the left. Well, what do you think? Take a look at how things are going to go when that bird sign comes from the right. All right, so a lot of things going on in this particular book, a lot of fighting and a lot of chattiness amongst the battle, right? A lot of talking, a lot of taunts, a lot of trying to reason with one another, a lot of getting help from other gods. Not just Zeus is powerful enough to support one army over another. So a lot to consider here. All right, so that is book 13. And next time we will look at book 14. So I want you to read that, annotate that, put some thoughts together, and then you can meet me back here and I'll give you my thoughts. So until then, and as always, happy reading.